Welcome, everyone, to our 6th podcast. I'm here with my son, Doug. I'm also Doug. We're the Dougs. And this is Curious Crossroads, a millennial and boomer dialogue. And we're happy that you came around and are going to spend a few minutes with us today. And incidentally, it's kind of exciting because we are implementing today our first UFO, alien, strange phenomena segment of the program. And we're going with one of the biggies, one of the most well-known alien encounters in Minnesota is what we'll be discussing today.
Yeah, I think it was, what was the guy's name? Did it happen in Marshall, Minnesota?
I think was it Warren?
Warren, Minnesota.
Warren, Minnesota.
And the guy's name was?
Deputy Sheriff Val Johnson.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And we'll be doing that segment this week, and hopefully each week thereafter we'll have a segment on something kind of crazy that's going on out there. And we'll see if we can't disprove it or see if, in fact, it could be something that actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
Coming off the tail end of 3-4 days of winter weather, it's like we didn't get anything through winter, and now that spring is here, all of a sudden we're getting dumped on. And it's been 3 days of nonstop snowing and drizzling and slippery stuff. I guess the other day there were over 800 accidents in Minnesota. So the guys that are liking that, obviously, are guys like Blue Line Collision, one of our sponsors, who obviously don't want to see people getting in accidents. But with nothing happening all winter, it was pretty dry for those guys as far as fixing cars. And hopefully they're getting a little business out of it.
Yeah, I got a buddy, too, named Billy. You know Billy.
Billy, good man.
He's got a partner named Alex, and they have a car detailing business. So they do tint, car detailing. They also do wraps for cars. They do all sorts of things. And I just told him, too, I want to get him in the show because I think it's a good time for him coming off this weather for people to, you know, if you're looking for your car to get cleaned up, any kind of tint or anything like that, bring it into Billy.
And they're mobile, too, aren't they? Don't they go out to?
Yeah, so they can actually come to you, or they have a garage. And now would be the time to do it after all this slush and all the crap on the roads and on your car. Bring it over to Billy at Shock Auto.
I'll be looking him up. And what's it called again?
It's called Shock Auto Detailing.
And we can put up a little...
Yep, I got a graphic, so I'll put that up too.
That's great. We like to do a music segment each week, and this week I had the good fortune of... Actually, it was last week. I went out to Maple Lake, Minnesota. Never been to Maple Lake, Minnesota, but I got on and I Googled live music for that weekend, and really there was nothing going on except in Maple Lake at a place called The V. And they had a triple header of entertainment. And the first band that came up was the Everett Smithson Band. I'd never heard of them, but they've been around for a long time. They've got 5 CDs out. And they had, I think Deb, my wife, put it best, they had kind of a Louisiana, New Orleans type feel to it, Creole. They were formed in 2005. We're going to run a little bit of their music right now. So that's the Everett Smithson Band. I wish I had a better camera. I'm going to have to invest in one just to get a little bit better sound out of it. But you can get an idea. Again, it's got Everett on the harps and vocals. Kathy Smithson, his wife, is on board with the accordion, and she gives it that Creole sound. Victor Spann on the drums. Jeremy Johnson on the guitar. Like I say, 5 CDs. They've toured with Big George Jackson, Kim Wilson, and Bo Diddley, just to name a few.
Look good.
Yeah.
Look like they're pretty good. Look fun. There's a lot of people there at that bar. So.
When we got there, there was something like 1,000 people. This bar is huge. And when we turned in, cars were parked out in the field because they were celebrating St. Patrick's Day. And it was a zoo, but it was a fun zoo. Next up came Kevin James and the Weary. and their little bio, an American band forged on the banks of the Rum and Mississippi rivers right here in Anoka. Storytelling, songwriting, rock and roll. Here's a little bit of Kevin James and the Weary. So again, that's Kevin James and the Weary. They signed with Nice Music Records and released their debut album in 2018. Again, kind of a Bob Dylan bluegrass mixed in with rock sort of feel, but they were a lot of fun. And they finished off the night, and this was supposed to be the big headliner, but they didn't get on until like 10:30, and by that time, people had been there all day. And by that time, 10:30 at night, even with the young kids, everybody, I think, was pooped and had gone home, except for about 20 people. And but then it was time for Lamont Cranston with Pat Hayes and their blues band. And we've talked about them before.
Yeah, what was that, like 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
2 or 3?
They were at Le Musique.
St. Michael Theater?
Yep. And they came on, and just a great show. It's just too bad that most of the crowd had thinned out and couldn't take advantage of.
What time did they come
really
on?
How good.
They were on at the end?
They got on at 10:30, so
wow.
You can't blame a lot of people for leaving. And then they played until midnight, but it was a good time, really good time. We wanted to talk a little bit. We said this week our movie to review would be the new Roadhouse.
The Roadhouse.
The Roadhouse. I got the original Roadhouse DVD. I went to the flea market in Annandale. I think have you been to that Annandale flea market?
I don't know. Maybe.
I got to put in a plug for them. If you have not been to the Annandale flea market, it is incredible. It's like being at the state fair. There is something for everybody. They've got live music. They've got games for the kids. They've got all sorts of food vendors. And then hundreds and hundreds of people that are selling their wares. Everything from antiques to guns to knives. They've got a big section of farmer stuff, corn. You can buy your corn. You can get your wheat, whatever you want to get, including flowers. A lot of people go there at the beginning in spring to get their flowers. It's a pretty cool place, and it's a lot of fun for the day. And I'd suggest it. And they're open on the weekends, and then they have extended hours when there's holidays. So there's a time for everybody.
So that's the flea market in Annandale.
Right. Anyways, I think most of us have seen the original Roadhouse, and I really like it. It's a cult favorite. That's why I got this. I got it downstairs with all my memorabilia. But I got this, and because it's a movie that I really enjoy. And it's one of those movies, and I think you'll agree, where if you're passing through the TV channels and you happen to see Roadhouse,
you stop what you're doing.
You stop and you're going to sit there for a while.
Yeah.
You got any other movies like that where if you going through the dial?
I think that movie Shooter with Mark Wahlberg is pretty good.
Right.
It's not like critically acclaimed, but it's one like where if it's on, you're going to watch it.
I like Shooter. I like
Forrest Gump, obviously.
Forrest Gump, Hoosiers for me with Gene Hackman, where he's the basketball coach. I absolutely will just stop and watch that whole movie.
Usually I'll watch Independence Day. That's usually on TNT.
Yep.
FX,
Independence Day
like
is a stopper.
Shawshank Redemption's on all the time. We talked about that last week with Jeff, too. Those were two of his favorite movies. So
Shawshank and
Forrest Gump.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Which makes sense why they're on TV all the time.
Classics.
Pretty popular.
So what did you think of the remake? It's got Jake Gyllenhaal, Conor McGregor, the MMA fighter, and some other personalities. But overall,
it was average. I thought it was, to me, it seemed like Roadhouse and Fast and the Furious had a baby, and then this was the movie. It just was like, it was weird because they were using CGI in places where I don't think they needed CGI, like in fight scenes, you could tell when it was fake.
Really?
It was just stuff like that, and then I know you like Conor McGregor in it. I thought he was okay. I thought he had just like a lot of one-line things. That they gave him.
This is his first movie.
Yeah,
I think he brought a lot of energy to it.
If
it had just been Jake Gyllenhaal trying to haul this thing around, I don't think it would have been as good as what it is. I'm not saying it's great by any means either. I think it was a poor script. It mirrored everything from the original.
Kind of.
Except instead of taking place in, I think it was Jesper, Missouri, this one's taking place in the Florida Keys. It's about a bar that he goes in to clean up, except this bar really isn't that bad to begin with. I mean, it's a pretty nice open bar. I'd go hang out there. The thing that kind of bugged me is, the fight scenes, which are supposed to be the biggest part of the movie. The bar usually only had like 20 people in it, so you didn't get that feel like there was a lot of stuff going on. It was like 10 guys fighting each other. It was like a WWE wrestling match. I just didn't get the same cool vibe that I got from the original Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze.
Yeah, it didn't feel as like badass, like old school badass. It was definitely like a modern day. I don't even know if Jake Gyllenhaal was the right fit.
I like Jake Gyllenhaal. I thought he was good. I thought if it hadn't been for him and Conor McGregor, forget about it.
I think he was good. I think like I would have gone a different route with that movie. Like I think like someone like Brad Pitt would have been more like if you saw Brad Pitt in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Do you remember that where he played the guy? That to me is like the closest thing to Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse is like that character.
I would have to agree with you.
So I would have liked to seen a movie that was centered around him like that, and then better writing. I don't know if it was cheesy, and the first one was cheesy, but this one was a little more corny. I don't know. It just wasn't as I felt like Patrick Swayze was actually a literal badass watching that movie, and I don't feel that way. Jake Gyllenhaal is such a nice guy too in Hollywood,
right?
And I know he did a movie called Southpaw, and that probably like landed him the role for this. I never saw it, but he was a boxer in that, and he was a pretty tough dude. But I don't know, his take on it wasn't bad. Like, don't get me wrong, it wasn't bad. It was just I think someone like Brad Pitt would have been cooler, or more like a Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse. That's just my opinion.
I agree. I did like Jake Gyllenhaal, probably a little miscast. But I thought he was good, and man, was he ripped. I mean, he obviously put some time in the gym before this show, and the same with Conor McGregor. I really did think that Conor McGregor, if it hadn't been for Conor McGregor, I think it would have been a poor movie. I thought he brought that up-tempo, let's go at it. He's just getting ripped, though, by people that follow the mixed martial arts. They're just saying he was the worst, and oh my God.
I don't. My take is like I thought he was okay. I didn't think it was like his first film, but I don't think he was. He's just another one of these guys that's trying to be like another, Schwarzenegger, moving from fighting or, going to a different industry. And I'm just not a big fan of Conor McGregor in general either. Like, it's cool when he's winning and fighting, and he can talk crap like that. But when you're not winning, it's like then you're just kind of a douche.
It was just corny. The script was just kind of corny, and you couldn't get behind it. I do like, though, there's a TV, I think it's on Apple, a TV series called Shrinking, and it's got this gal, Jessica Williams, and she's the one that played the bar owner. Yeah,
she's a comedian, too, I guess.
Comedian, too. I didn't think they utilized her right.
I thought she seemed like
she was so subdued, and they just didn't give her the energy that she brings to the table with anything that she does.
She's usually a pretty good actress. She's in other stuff, but I thought she was not good in that. Like, I don't know if it was the writing, but like the way she was
I think it was the writing.
The way she delivered the lines, I was like, oh, she's not that good. But I've seen her in other stuff, and she is good. So I think it just came down to storyline.
So this one, yeah. The one we're talking about?
Sellout. That's a sellout because they had Post Malone in it. I just feel like they were doing everything they can to get people in the... they're like, we don't care about the storyline. We're just trying to get people to watch it based off of Conor McGregor and like big names. It's like, no, dude, start with the storyline. Start with a good story.
Exactly.
And this was just trying to get you in with all the bells and whistles of the cool actors and stuff like that. That's what I think.
And you can kind of see why it went direct to Prime TV. Instead of having a theater.
It could have been in a theater.
Well, here's what they said about that. They said the way they rationalized it was they gave the director-producers a choice. They would either give them $60 million and they could open it in theaters, or $75 million, but it had to be open on Prime. Now, what the reasoning is behind that, but that's what they decided. And I don't know that extra $15 million really got put to good use, to be honest with you.
To be honest, we saw Ghostbusters 2 last week. Maybe we can touch on that real quick. I enjoyed that movie better than The Roadhouse.
I like Ghostbusters too.
Don't get me wrong, it was nothing special, but I thought it was, we had mentioned it was kind of like a Universal ride.
Paul Rudd's in that. Bill Murray comes back with his recurring role. They got Dan Aykroyd through the whole movie. A lot of the same characters from the original.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of fun.
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was very...
I like that one better than Roadhouse.
It's a ride. You know, you're, by the time the movie's done, you're just going, wow, that was fun.
I mean, it definitely doesn't have the magic of the first one.
And you could almost see where they're kind of planning to maybe make it into a ride at like Disney World or something.
I think that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
I think they're trying to...
You kind of felt like you were...
Well, if you go to Universal Studios and you're waiting in line, they usually have like a little video that you watch, like to the intro to get on the ride.
Right. Yep.
That's what that movie felt
like. They did with Aerosmith.
It felt like, hey, everybody, this is our mission and this is what we have to do. Now get ready and you're going to... It was like the same thing. So...
Yeah, it was fun.
But yeah.
Much more worthwhile for viewing probably than Roadhouse.
Yeah, I think so.
But Roadhouse is still, it's stupid fun.
Yeah, I think so. Just the first one is just a classic. So it's a remake and it's okay, but it's not the original. The original's the best.
Well, we've got a special guest with us in the studio today.
Come here, boy. Get up. He's sleeping on the couch right now. Come here.
His name's Murphy, and he became an internet sensation over the last week. And you're going to be able to see the video that made this guy a star. Again, Murphy, he's our house dog. And
it's the office dog now.
The office dog. And here he is. He's a little shy today.
He's a shy dog.
And how long have you had that boy?
4 years, I think.
And was he like a rescue dog?
Yeah.
Or?
So he was like 1.5 to 2 years when we got him.
Any background on him when you...
He's from Bama. He's from Alabama. He's a wild stray. Got him from a place called Spot's Last Stop. It's a rescue here in Minneapolis. And they bring dogs up from Alabama, rescue them, and then people can adopt them.
Right. Why? Does Alabama have an abundance of...
I think they do have a stray dog kind of a problem over there.
Really?
Wild dog problem. But yeah, like you say, we're just playing around with the YouTube Shorts. It's kind of like their TikTok on YouTube.
Yeah, if you go to our YouTube channel, if you'll subscribe, you'll see the work that Doug's putting in for their video shorts. And they help to build your channel audience and get subscribers, which incidentally, if you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, it would sure be appreciated. And it just takes a second. Some people have indicated, I got to put in my Gmail, or they have to put in their password. You might have to do that, but it just takes a second, and it would sure be appreciated. Then you'll be alerted to everything that we're doing.
Yeah, if you can do it right now even, there's a little subscribe button right below the video.
While we're talking.
Or that little orange box in the bottom right-hand corner. You could click on that too. But yeah, if you could do that, we'd really appreciate it. So
anyways, he did one of these video shorts over the past week with his dog, and we're going to run that right now. And it got, obviously nowadays for something to go viral, it's millions and millions of views. But back in the day when you'd get, how many does it have accumulated? Like
it's got 20,000 now.
20,000 views.
Of Murph.
That's pretty darn good as far as I'm concerned. So let's roll that. So that's Murphy. Hopefully we'll get some more videos with Murphy, our new office dog.
Well, the dogs hit well on YouTube, so we might become a hybrid dog cat channel. Nah,
it seems
we
like
won't, but we'll
if
put
you
some
can come
videos
up with
of
a good dog or cat video.
People love that. People love babies, dogs,
cats,
all that stuff. Anything to do
hamsters,
with a pet. Yeah,
chipmunks.
Yeah, not squirrels. I do like squirrels. We got some
I do
squirrels
too. We've got a squirrel in our neighborhood, honest to God, that looks just like it's albino white with a black stripe going down its back.
That's called a skunk.
It's not a skunk,
That's
though.
a skunk.
It's a squirrel, and but it's an oddity for sure.
You literally just described a skunk.
I know it's not a skunk.
I've never seen a squirrel
guarantee
with
it's
just a
not a
black
skunk.
line,
It's a
maybe.
squirrel. What I'll do is I'll capture some video.
Yeah.
And we will show it on the show next week because it's just like the neighborhood squirrel. It's around all the time.
Just hanging out.
So, anyways, we are very, very pleased to bring you now our UFO, alien, strange phenomena segment that hopefully we'll have each week now, where we'll explore some strange stuff that's going on out there.
Or at least an interesting story, at least. I don't know if it's always going to be alien related, but...
No, yeah, well, like I say, it could be some strange phenomena. Whatever. There's a lot of stuff on the internet. We'll do a little sifting and put something on the plate for you. But our first one...
Why don't you read us in on it?
Well, here we go.
You're going to kind of read a story to the audience.
In the quiet early hours of August 27th, 1979, near Warren, Minnesota, Deputy Sheriff Val Johnson experienced something truly extraordinary. While on patrol in Marshall County, Johnson encountered a bright, unidentified flying object that not only stunned him, but also left a lasting mark on both him and his patrol car. Johnson described seeing a bright light on the road ahead, which seemed to rapidly approach his vehicle. Johnson found his patrol car had suffered peculiar damage. The windshield was cracked, the headlight covers were shattered, and the car's antenna was oddly bent. Even more bewildering, Johnson himself displayed symptoms of mild eye inflammation, akin to a welder's burn, a condition caused by exposure to bright light sources. The aftermath of this mysterious encounter sparked an investigation that captured the attention of both the public and UFO researchers. The vehicle underwent thorough examination by forensic experts, yet no conclusive explanation could be provided for the incident's bizarre nature. This encounter continues to fascinate and mystify both skeptics and believers in the unexplained, making it the perfect tale for those who look up at the night sky and wonder, what if? So there you have it. What do you think?
I think it's pretty wild. It's a very well documented story that actually happened. It's a big thing here in Minnesota. If you're not from this state, I mean, I wasn't really aware of it until just a few years ago. They did like a news story on it that I saw. But it's like one of the biggest UFO stories in the nation, and it happened right here in Minnesota.
Got, I think it's parts of the car or whatever are in. I'll have to get it. I think it's some museum.
Yeah,
there's a museum, and I think it's state funded, but it's
at the Marshall County Museum in Warren, Minnesota.
Excuse me.
They have the actual car in the museum because the headlight shattered. Like you said, the guy experienced radiation. He had like radiation burns on his arms.
Yep.
And this is where it gets weird too. This is just straight out of like a sci-fi movie, but his wristwatch stopped for like 14 minutes. He was unconscious for 40 minutes.
Really? I didn't hear that part of it.
Yeah, he suffered photokeratitis, which is a form of like welder's burns. So it's really weird. It's really trippy.
When you first start looking at it, some of it could be explained if somebody maybe was drinking on duty, crashing the car.
I think they have audio, though, of him talking.
And I'm not saying he was drinking on duty. I'm just saying what happened to his car, some of it anyways.
Yeah, it's back in the 70s, so, who knows.
Right.
1979. But it's weird because the UFO now it's called UAP. They like relabeled it, and I don't know why they did that. It's called unidentified aerial phenomena. they changed it from unidentified flying object to UAP.
Right.
And that might just be because, too, you're seeing more and more of it again. We haven't seen it recently in the last few months as far as UAP reportings and UFO reportings and stuff like that. But in like the last 2 years, they've been dishing that stuff out like every 2 months. You hear something new on UFOs and UAPs. Pentagon's come forward and said, yeah, there is stuff in the sky. It's not ours. It's defying physics.
Well, just this morning on one of the radio stations when I was driving in, they were on KFAN. They were talking about all of the UFO sightings right here in Minnesota. And they're documenting. So we'll have to look into some more of this stuff because there's like, just within the last few years, there's like 200 UFO sightings. But we'll take a closer look at this. And
well, the other thing that's weird too is do you remember like a year ago the Chinese space balloon?
Right. Yep.
That floated over.
Yep.
So that was pretty well.
Well, that's what they said it was, anyways.
Well, no, there was something in the sky that was a Chinese air balloon, space balloon. There was like 3 of them or whatever, and they shot them down.
Yeah.
But I'm going to put some links here too, and you can look this up. I don't think you know about this, but while that was going on, there was also another incident that they kind of tied in to make it sound like it was the Chinese space balloon.
Right.
They shot down another thing that was over Alaska, but it wasn't a space balloon. They called it like a spherical. It was a UAP. They said it's a UAP. It's something
traveling through another dimension.
But this is where it gets weird, is because it's so weird that out of nowhere we just started shooting down this stuff that we've never shot down before in U.S. airspace.
Right.
We've never done that, and we needed a reason to do it. So it goes back to like, if you give me a good enough reason, I'll believe it, kind of a thing. So they're taking down all these Chinese air balloons, and then over Alaska, John Kirby, who's like the press secretary, I forget what he is for Biden or whatever, but he described it as like, this one wasn't a space balloon. This was something else, and we don't know what it was, but we shot it down. It was like this metal thing. It was actually interfering with our radar.
Did they recover?
That's where it's weird. It's weird too. So they have the images of the space balloons, but they never came to any conclusion or took any images of what this thing was over Alaska that they shot down. Had zero propulsion system, which they say is like a thing that defies physics, because in order for something to move, you need something to propel out the back.
Right.
Didn't have that. It was messing with their radar. Shot it down over Alaska. FBI, Coast Guard, Air Force, they couldn't find the remains of it, supposedly. You got the most intel people in the world, and they're saying they couldn't find what they shot down, and they still don't know what it was.
So maybe we'll dig in a little deeper on that.
Well, my whole thing is, like, I think the space balloon thing might have been a
distraction,
diversion.
right? A
distraction, so that they could shoot down whatever this thing was. That's my opinion, because they never went into it again, and you can look it up. It never came to any conclusion of what it was or what it was made of or whose it was. They just ended the story there, which is really weird.
You know, one other thing that you brought to my attention, and I've always said, hey, you know, all these people take pictures of what are supposedly UFOs, and they've got a picture, but they're always blurry. And I go, why wouldn't somebody have a picture that wasn't blurry? And you said,
well, I'm just saying, if it's like some kind of advanced species, I don't think it'd be too hard for them to
put up some sort of shield or whatever,
pixelate your phone or do something like that along those lines of
so that you can't get a good picture.
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems like it wouldn't be that difficult for something that's super smart.
Right.
So. But two, I just want to go into it too. Do you know about like Bob Lazar?
Bob Lazar, I think you've played some of his...
Yeah, so if you're not aware, Bob Lazar, back in 1989, he was the one that exposed Area 51. And he did it through, it was on I don't know what it was. It was Las Vegas News.
Right.
By a guy, investigative journalist named George Knapp. And he did this interview with Bob Lazar, and Bob Lazar came forward and said, hey, there's this base out here. It's called Area 51. I'm over stationed at S4, which is like a base of it. And they got us working on back engineering non-made human crafts, so UFOs.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of all starts from there and originates from there. As far as this like alien folklore, I guess you go all the way back to Roswell, but this is when it got resurfaced again. And he said, yeah, this stuff is true. This isn't just rumors. There's stuff that they're working on.
Is Area 51, it's not still active, is it?
Oh, yeah, it's active.
Oh,
yeah.
it is active.
Yeah.
And that's just for?
I don't know. I don't think people know exactly. Bob Lazar came forward. There's a really good documentary. It was on Netflix. It was called Bob Lazar, Area 51 and UFOs or something like that. I'll link it too. That's a great movie if you want to look into that a little bit more.
Right.
Because what he did is like back in the 80s when he came forward, he said all this stuff and he couldn't prove any of it. But now that time's gone on, all these things are now coming out that are actually proving Bob Lazar right from what he said back in 1989.
Maybe you could put up the title of that movie.
Yeah, I'll put it up and I'll put it in the description. But that's super interesting. And then the other thing, too, that kind of ticks me off is people were obviously seeing these UAP UFOs back in 1947 when Roswell happened. Obviously, right? Because people were describing what flying saucers and different things like that. But everyone was coming forward and they were saying, you're crazy. There's no such thing.
Right.
There's no such thing as UFOs. And now, like 2 years ago, the Pentagon came forward and said, oh, yeah, those UFOs, those fear things and the flying saucers, those are real. They're not ours, but we are confirming that they're real. So this entire time back in the 40s up until the 2000s, you were telling people they were crazy for seeing what they were seeing, and it ends up that they were real the whole time.
Typical.
That's just... Who can you trust?
Right. Well,
So-
we've known that for a long time.
That's what I'm saying. Is like whatever they were seeing was obviously real. I don't know if it's our stuff, if it's alien stuff. I don't really care. I just kind of want to know what it is.
It's interesting. It's fun to look into.
Yeah.
And some of it, I think, like you say, if we take a look at some of these stories, some of them are pretty easy to debunk, you know. You can tell that...
Well, that was a guy's job back in the 50s, like 1952 to 1969. There was an investigative team where after Roswell, they put together this investigative
Is this
team.
on that book that you...
Yeah, so it was called Project Blue Book. That was the name of the program.
Right.
And they hired this astrophysicist from Northwestern University. His name's Dr. J. Allen Hynek. And he's kind of like this UFO researcher, highly respected. And his job was to come in and disprove all the stuff that people were saying and the sightings they were seeing.
Yep.
So the government brought him in so that they could have an explanation of why what people are saying is not true. But after he got done doing all the investigation through the 15, 20 years that he did it, he came to the conclusion, like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff, like you say, that can be explained, but there's something else going on out there, and I don't know what it is. So at the end of it, he came in super skeptical, and by the end of it, he came out saying, okay, there's something going on.
I'm just getting started on that book, but it is very interesting.
Yeah, it's called the UFO Experience.
First couple chapters are a little bit...
Yeah, it's called the UFO Experience, but I don't know if you know this, but the movie, Steven Spielberg movie, Strange Encounter, Close Encounters of the Third Kind,
Right.
That's based off his book.
Really?
Yeah, Dr. J. Allen Hynek, because
I did not know that.
He was the one that basically labeled Close Encounters of the First Kind, Second Kind, Third Kind. So that's where that comes from, and he actually makes a cameo in that movie.
Really?
Yeah. So I'll post
Maybe you
that
could
too.
dig that up and...
Yeah, so you'll actually see Dr. J. Allen Hynek, real guy, wrote the book, UFO sightings, that all that stuff
Very
that you
cool.
saw in the movie.
I love that movie.
Yeah, it was all based on real stuff.
That's with Richard Dreyfuss, right?
Richard Dreyfuss, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Where he starts building the
mound
in his living room where with
it looks
potatoes.
like is it Devil's Tower?
Devil's Tower in...
Yeah.
Is that Arizona?
I think it's in like Wyoming or something.
Wyoming.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's our little background on UFO and UAP stuff. So
this will be a regular segment, so you'll want to tune in each week for the UFO Strange Phenomena segment. Well, the segment that I'm always looking forward to is the Biitcoin TidBit. A lot's going on with Bitcoin right now, but I was talking with someone the other day, and they said, how do you make Bitcoin, or how, and talk about the energy that's needed, and what is that all about? Is it all a bunch of little computers that are doing stuff, or how do you make or find Bitcoin?
Yeah,
Mine it.
So I guess real quick, Bitcoin, just so people know, it's still at about $71,000, just for a kind of an update. And then to get to your question about how does Bitcoin get made or gets into circulation, it's done through a function called mining. And what mining is you have a bunch of computers, and this is where it gets a lot of hate too, because there's a lot of energy consumption that it uses from the electricity. But in order to mine Bitcoin, it's done through a proof of work system, which means the more computing power you have, the better odds you have of solving these puzzles, because all these computers and miners are trying to solve these mathematical puzzles. And whoever does that first, they get a reward of the Bitcoin that gets mined. So they get like 6. So every 10 minutes, there's 6 Bitcoin that gets mined and put into circulation.
Right.
And the winner, the miner that solves those problems first, they're the ones that get the reward. So the more computers you have, the better odds you have of actually winning the Bitcoin reward.
Can Joe Blow sit in his office and mine
you can,
Bitcoin?
But you have no chance. I mean, you do have a chance. You have a very small chance because there's mining companies.
Big companies.
That just buy these things called ASICs, which their only job to do is solve these mathematical equations. And like I say, the more computers you have of that, the better odds you have of getting the Bitcoin reward. But I was just going to say, too, Bitcoin gets a lot of hate, obviously, because of all that energy consumption that it uses.
Yep.
It gets compared to using the same amount as like small countries is how much it uses. And because of that, Bitcoin, people say it has a bad carbon footprint and all this stuff. But the reality of it is that about 50 to 60% of all Bitcoin energy is done through renewable energy. So things like hydro turbines, solar, and different things like that, because that's actually the cheapest form of energy that these Bitcoin miners can use. So it's the most cost effective for them if they're running a business trying to make Bitcoin.
Right.
You want the cheapest energy for the maximum profit. And another thing that they're doing too is, the industry, it's called oil and gas, like the oil and gas industry.
Sure.
What's going on right now is a lot of times in order to get to that oil, it's called oil and gas because there's a layer of gas that sits on top of the oil when they're drilling. And what they'll do, because they're making so much money off the oil, they'll just like shoot the gas out through a mechanism, through a thing called flaring.
Right.
So you literally just shoot it out and you burn it and it goes right into the atmosphere. Horrible. Like horrible for the climate.
That's not fracking, or isn't that what they call it?
It's flaring. So you're just sending gas up through these tubes and you're just burning it because you gotta burn it in order to get to the oil. That's the only way you can get to the oil. So they'll burn it, and it, like I say, it's horrible for the atmosphere, for the carbon footprint, for everything, because there's actually methane in that too. So there's a small percentage of methane that they're burning, and that's way worse than carbon. And what they're doing now, they're bringing in Bitcoin mining rigs. Instead of just burning it, they're taking the gas, they're putting it into a generator, an electrical generator to gas it.
They're using it.
And then they take that electricity and then they mine it.
Wow.
So I just think that's kind of cool. Maybe I can put up a link or a video to show people how that's working.
Is that being done on a big scale, or are they just testing it?
It's being done more and more on different, like the oil companies are fine with it. They're like, yeah, come on in. Like, pay us a small fee to take this gas, turn it into Bitcoin, and you make money, I make money, and it's all good. And then also it's good for ESG and things like that, for environmental hazards. Like you're making the environment better.
Right. Next week too, if we could, or the next podcast, if we could talk, because I had somebody else that was asking about what this big event called Halving is all about. So if we could throw that into the mix next week, because that's taking place for Bitcoin in April.
Yeah.
The first part of April?
Yeah, that's kind of like an important function to how Bitcoin works, and it's a big deal.
But if we could talk about that next week, that'd be great.
Yeah, we'll do that.
So one of my favorite things to do, obviously, you've heard us talk about it before, is head over to On the Green and hit the ball a little bit. And obviously, it was great to have it this week because of all the snow. It was nice to see On the Green was packed over there. But we brought along Jeff Maggs and Zach Magdick and had a good time.
Yeah, and Jeff got bumped down on the leaderboard because his son, Zach, he drove it it was 301 yards. So he's second on the list now.
He can crack that ball.
Yeah.
He's got a new set of TaylorMades, and he can hit his 7-iron.
220.
220 yards with a 7-iron.
Yeah, it's crazy.
He's got a good swing. And he doesn't even golf that often.
No, but he's just like naturally athletic.
He's naturally athletic, and
Unlike Jeff.
unlike his dad, Jeff. We're just kidding, Jeff. But it was fun to see Zach.
Yeah, he's super nice. I only see him a few times, but Zach is like one of the nicest dudes.
And he's a builder, too, who does incredible work. We'll probably throw something up on him eventually for what he does. It's similar to Kevin Stangert and KRS.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, that was fun.
And then Jeff was trying to like improve his drive from last time. He's like, you gonna put on my, because he hit it like 279 this time.
Right, he did. Did we get a picture of that?
Yeah, we got a picture of it, but you got to go with the first one. It's not like he can just like increase it
I don't
every
know
week.
about that. I think
because everybody else isn't going to be going to the golf simulator.
Well, I will
every
be,
week.
and I hopefully can top my 220 yards or whatever it was.
I don't know.
It's been tough lately.
But he's still officially on the leaderboard as 266. So
right.
But he did hit a 279 for the record, so I'll give him that.
So that's our show for this week. Hope you'll come back again and give us a listen. Don't forget, I know you've heard us say this over and over, but if you could subscribe today, if you haven't subscribed, it's real simple. If it asks you to throw in your Gmail password or whatever, please do it. It only takes a second, but then it'll register your subscription, and then you'll get to see a lot of the video shorts and stuff that Doug's been working on, and they're really a lot of fun.
Yeah, sounds good.
So have a good day. Have a good life.